Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Lovett-Minkiti. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives. Hi, guys. You've got Seychelle and Tiffany on the podcast today, and I am uniquely excited about the two of us doing this episode here together because Tiffany and I, how would you say it, Tiff?
We've had some years. We've had some years.
I
feel like when we talk about it, we're like, are you okay right now? Because I'm not okay, so I need you to be okay right this second, but then you can fall apart next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like life has just served us different
kicks in the teeth. Yeah. But some kicks, like some continual kicks in the teeth over the last 5 years that I don't think either of us could have seen coming. There wasn't a plan for it. And we would get through one and be like, now it's going to be fine, right? And then you would get another kick in the teeth and be like, now it's going to be fine. And I think now we're both like on a really good spot and going towards really amazing, awesome things we're really excited about. I would say both of us for 5 years just got kicked in the teeth.
Yeah.
So Tiffany and I were reflecting today because we have some friends entering into this phase of life that we both are coming out of. And the first thing we want to say to you, if you're listening to this going, oh, good. Thanks for that, guys. I'm entering that phase is you're going to be okay and you're going to get through it and you're going to be better for it. But we also thought we might record this podcast episode today for you that if you have a friend or you yourself are going through kind of a tough spot, this is our like best practices of how we not only survived chaos, which I think is an important part of it to survive it, but that we actually figured out how to thrive in it. So if you are listening today and you're feeling that this might be the episode for you or one for you to share, because we're going to talk today not only about surviving chaos, but how to thrive.
Yeah. And I mean, what do they say? The only thing you know for certain is that uncertain things happen. Like you can make your plans and you have no idea what today is going to bring or next month is going to bring. And I know that a lot of people are living in hard right now and no one's ever ready for it. Like, I don't think, no, what a horrible life to walk around ready for horrible things to happen to you. But, when it happens, you need to have some steps. That's the biggest thing. I talk to my kids all the time about tools. So and they talk in therapy about tools a lot. It's like, hey, you can't control the situation, but when you find yourself in a hole, if you've got some tools, you'll get out faster. If you don't have to start figuring out, what do I do? If you just kind of know, all right, things are going to happen. And these are some tools I can use when something happens. So that's what we're giving you. Pickaxes, shovels, maybe a ladder.
Some life skills. So in Michigan, if you live near Lake Michigan or any of the lakes, you are required to do swim classes as a part of elementary. And so Nick, as a kid, like all the kids in northern Michigan, that they got traumatized by the community bathing suits they all had to wear for their PE classes, but they all had to learn swim classes because they all were near water. And there was always a concern of drowning or riptides or, currents pulling you out. And so the kids all did training and exercises, not because they were, just like the normal days, but they did it to be prepared for if something unexpected happened. And like the tide of Lake Michigan pulled you out into the water, you needed to understand that the harder you fight that current, the more exhausted you're going to get, the more likely you're going to drown. But if you understand that tide pulling you out is temporary and it will subside, then you can swim back to shore safely. And so today we're going to talk about that because if you've got, like Tiffany was saying, those tools and that mindset to understand that it's not permanent, it's going to end, there's a timing to it, you can better cope to get through it, to get to the other side.
Love that. Okay. So let's jump into what do you do when chaos descends or when you get expelled from your house in Taiwan during COVID and have to live with your family in a motel room for months and months, or you are faced with health concerns and the reality of health things for family members that are going to slowly be pulled away from you.
Yeah.
What do you do?
What do you do? And I think number one for me is it feels overwhelming. Everything feels overwhelming at once. Like when I think about you guys being in Taiwan, when I think about like COVID happening and my dad's health kind of colliding at the same time, it was everything all at once. And it's not ever like there's one tiny piece. It's like, no, it's financial, it's health, it's chaos, it's, you know, like we both were homeschooling kids in the middle of it. Like it was everything. And so I think number one for us was like really getting into what is the biggest problem we need to solve for first. And then we can solve the second, and then we can solve the third. And for some people, that may be I have a family member in trauma and they need medical aid immediately. It could be I have to figure out my cash flow money situation so that I have a roof over my head and then I can deal with this chaos. But I think really asking yourself, what is the most pressing number one problem I need to solve first so that everything else becomes easier was really, really, really helpful for us when everything was happening all at once.
And in that identifying of the real problem, the faster you can figure out what your biggest fear is in this situation, the faster you can actually attack things and decide what is the biggest problem for me. So, you know, like I can only imagine with your dad, your greatest fear is the time that you're losing or spending the time, or, you know, what does that look like? Because you know there's going to be an end coming that you have to face. I was literally faced with all our stuff on the curb in a country where I don't speak the language, you know, like where is my family sleeping tonight? That is what we are going to figure out, because my greatest fear at that moment had nothing to do with my business in the United States and what COVID was going to do for that. That would come later. That would come later. But in that moment in time, it was like, okay, how do I get back in there? Or what are my tools? How do I get us someplace to live?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and my fear became as simple as like the first step was, how do I literally go to the bathroom without dad falling and impaling himself on a corner in the counter while I need to go pee for 2 minutes? And so it became like for us, it was, how can I have someone come alongside that can physically be in the home so that I can do some things and act as a human, but also keep him safe, right?
Yeah.
That became like the first domino. And how many hours a week do we need that in order to help make sure that we have that aid? And so if you can break it down into granular, like Tiffany saying, like, I need a roof over my head tonight. Like, I need to be able to go to the bathroom for 2 minutes, right? Whatever that is, like, break it down so that you understand that's a problem we need to solve for first, and then we can solve the next problem. But get the first one out of the way so that it can create some momentum for you.
And then number two, you need to get into the reality of what your situation is. Like, you need to get past the feeling.
You're going to feel out of control.
Yeah, but you need to figure out, okay, what's the reality? You know, when our top agent moved to Colorado, he gave us plenty of notice, but the reality of the situation was how the business was currently set up was changing immediately. I mean, I know you and I both have had people piece out of our business with almost no notice, leaving us in a complete lurch. And the reality of the situation is, how are the listings that are on the market getting served? You know, like, you cannot live in disbelief of the reality of your situation. And I also want you to hear me say, this is so hard to do because you want to believe it's going to be fine, or, you know, you're super optimistic about it. But the faster you can get into the reality of your situation, you know, facing the reality of your situation, the quicker you can get into solutions. But it's never going to be as fast as you want. Like, you're never going to be able to face reality as fast as logical, not dealing with chaos Tiffany would want you to be able to do it.
Well, and like a great example of that with my dad's health was, I thought this was going to be like a 5 to 7 year journey when I first got into the business. And in reality, it was a 20-year journey. There's blessings that come with that. I got more time with my dad. I got like so many memories that I got to make that I wouldn't have had the opportunity for if it had been really fast. But the reality of that too was then I needed to provide for 20 years, not 5 to 7. Yeah. And I needed to plan for, you know, at each phase, we had to reinvent what that looked like for 20 years, not 5 to 7. And so There's all sorts of those things happen. And it's okay to give yourself some grace to understand that like it might take a little bit longer than you think.
So another thing that happened to us in the last 5 years is how my kids were schooled got completely changed. We were in a school that imploded and ceased to exist with almost no notice. And it was like, okay, let's talk about the reality my business is going to have to face while I figure out this personal stuff. Like, I had to abandon pretty much our goals in the business because it was not prepared. The business was not ready for me to about face and step out. No. But the reality was it had to happen. And then the other reality was, okay, what does that mean for the business? What do we need to change in the expenses? What do we need to change in what we're spending, in who's doing what in the businesses? You know, you can get very tactical once you get out of the emotion of it and you just face the reality. The faster you go from, I don't want to be dealing with this, to this is what I'm dealing with. And so let's just figure it out. That time is crucial for the success on the other side of whatever that thing is that you're facing. The faster you can get that down to, I don't want this reality, let's pretend it doesn't exist, to no, this is the reality. And I want you to hear me say that's also a learned skill in life. Like, nobody's good at that at first.
I was just thinking about that. Like, how do you teach your kids that? Like the book that Angela Duckworth wrote, Grit,
yeah.
Right? That talks about like, how do we create resiliency and problem solving in our children? If you have not developed that skill to be like a really good reflex muscle, it's going to feel like you're lifting 200 pounds and you haven't deadlifted anything in 50 years. It's going to feel really, really heavy at the beginning, but your reps are going to get smaller and easier and faster as you keep working on that skill set.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember the first time someone quit my team and how like devastating that felt. And it was, and you're like, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. And you're like, you're crying, you're in a ball in the corner, like just so upset about it all. And you just don't want to deal with it. And then it's a week or two before you can really jump into action. And now someone can say that to me and I can be gutted, but I can immediately get into action on, okay, what does this mean? And how do I move forward no matter what I'm feeling about it right now?
The best part is the life experience that you have at that point is to say, you're going to be okay. It's going to be hard. There's going to be times when you're like, don't love this, but you're going to be okay. And I think remembering that in the hard, you're going to be okay. You just got to figure out how is a big part of it. And something that's our third piece, which for me actually creates a lot of the lack of anxiety and chaos for me, is something that we accidentally lucked into, which is we built up a really big nest egg of cash reserves, probably more than most humans think is normal, just because I wanted to be able to sleep at night. And I knew that if I had the cash reserves, that if stuff hit the fan and I couldn't make an income for a year, we could do that. I don't want to do that, but if we had to, I could. It allowed me to sleep and breathe and make other decisions, not in scarcity, not make decisions out of fear, not make decisions out of, I just feel like that clenched fist feeling, but I could make decisions that felt like they were more thought through. And I was making business or personal decisions that had a little bit more of a long-term effect because I had a longer-term breathing room. And I will tell you guys that was like life-saving for me. And, even with our market being as weird as it's been the last couple of years, like just knowing that we have the nest egg to breathe and make decisions. And if the company doesn't make money one month, I'm not going to lose our house. I can have the breathing room to make smarter decisions. And so that nest egg, if you don't have that built up and you feel like you're going through chaos, like I would honestly venture to say, shy of like getting your health fixed if it's a major health crisis, like step one is start to build up your nest egg as big and fast as you can so that you can buy yourself breathing room to make other decisions.
Yeah. Let's just be tactical. Okay. So, Dave Ramsey, whether you love him or hate him, he teaches some good stuff financially. He says you should have 3 months of personal living expenses. That's what he says. Again, I'm like you. I like more than that. So I, in my business, had 6 months of fully funded. My business could make no money for 6 months. And if I take from that, the very first thing that I do with a profit is it goes back into there because I'm not paying myself until that nest egg is back and firm. And I had that nest egg for 3, 4, 5 years probably without touching it. And it was hard to keep it. I started getting into building mode. Yes. Oh, this is money I could do this other thing with. And then when it hit the fan and I was pulling from that nest egg 5 out of 10 months, I was so glad that I had that. And it allowed me to lower stress. Because, money is like the number one stressor.
It is. In marriage, in business, and everything. Yeah.
Okay, so did you have 6 months of your business?
So we have 6 months of business, but on the personal side, because we had rentals too, and I had run into a guy early in my investing career that said the number one reason why his friends that had built up rentals went bankrupt is they didn't have enough cash reserves when the S&P crisis in the 80s happened and all of their rentals were not rented at the same time. I was like, ooh, that's scary. So we actually have a year's worth of personal, it sounds crazy. I sound like a crazy person when I say this out loud. But in a money market account, we have a year's worth of personal expenses set aside. Am I living lavishly and going on extreme vacations? No, in that budget. But am I covering expenses and
paying for all your rental properties?
Yeah, paying for all of our rental properties. And to give you an example, Tiffany, in August, we had huge hailstorms here in North Texas. I had 2 air conditioners go out and a water heater go out. I had $45,000 worth of expenses on our rental properties happen in 1 month. Now, that's not normal, but like if I didn't have cash reserves, we were working from Michigan in summer when that happened. And I would have been like, we're driving back home immediately. And instead, we could still follow the plan of being able to work from Michigan and have our family time up there while also working, fund it down here. And while I was like, I don't love this, I wasn't losing sleep. I was not panicking. And I know we can build that back up. And so it allows for a much more quiet form of living in my world when I know that I have that to draw on if we need it.
Yeah. I love that. And you saying, oh, I feel crazy for having 12 months. That's why I want us to say it, because somebody else out there wants 12 months but feels crazy.
And I'm unapologetic about it. And Nick was the one that pushed for it. He was like, for real, Seychelle, like, what is the number you can sleep at night with? You feel like there's never enough. I mean, I can tell many of our parents' generations, right? Like it's never enough, never enough. And they were kids of the Depression era kids. They were never enough. They slept with money under their mattresses. So I think there is like a societal piece to that. But Nick was just like, just name the number. And once we hit that number, then we can have permission to go do other things. But name the number. Let's make that the real number. And we just go from there.
So wise, Nick. Good work.
I know. It was Nick. It was not me. It's him. So all the credit to him on that.
Okay. So number 4, this one feels obvious, but it might be the hardest, is ask for help. People want to help you. People in your business, your clients, your friends, your neighbors, people at your kids' schools. Like when somebody asks for help, the instinct is to rise to it. You're honored usually to be asked. And it's so weird that it's so hard for us to do that. It's probably tied up in showing weakness or, needing to look strong all the time. But the reality is you don't get what you don't ask for.
That's right.
So you need to ask for help when you need help. That goes up, that goes down in life. Like if you want an opportunity, you need to ask for it. Do you want to invest a certain way? You need to ask for it. I got my first, second or third hard money lending opportunity because I started telling people that I was a hard money lender, having only lent like $30,000 once. But I was out talking about it and asking for that. And that helped me. I know one of our dear friends, Diane, like she was like, you know what? I need more business right now. And so she set out and started asking for more clients. And if she doesn't have a booming business now, completely different than it was a year ago.
Oh.
And that's because she asked for it. So asking for help.
Ask for what you want or what you need. And it's also okay to ask to be removed from stuff. Like the next one for us is number 5, which is setting boundaries. Sometimes setting boundaries is asking for help and saying like, I'm overcommitted right now and I need to step away from X. Or I would love to do that with you, but I'm tapped out right now. It took me until age 40 to learn what boundaries were. So boundaries are great, but protecting your mental sanity, protecting your health, protecting your relationships is so important And if you don't have the bandwidth to be able to do those things, the rest doesn't matter. And so really protecting in chaos what is going to keep you alive and what's going to keep you sane and what's going to keep you joyful, because it's okay to have joy in the midst of a lot of pain, and giving yourself permission to find joy in pain. You have to set some serious boundaries around yourself, around your family, around your time to do that. And it sometimes feels really selfish because you feel like there's all this other stuff you should be doing. But I found sometimes it was even just taking an afternoon off of work, going and having a date afternoon with Nick to recharge our relationship. You know, our agenda was walk to a coffee shop or walk to a local restaurant and just have a meal together.
Yeah.
In the midst of chaos, because we didn't have any other backup any other way. It felt crazy because our business felt like it couldn't afford that time right now. I felt guilty because I had 20 other things on my to-do list. But if you don't have a marriage at the end of it, or you don't have yourself at the end of it, what's the point? And so really protecting yourself and being okay with just saying no and understand that you'll have more bandwidth down the road is completely okay. And you're not a jerk and you're not selfish if you need to do that.
I love that. Okay, number 6. This one is important. When you are in chaos, you must resist the urge to burn it all down, because that feels like the easiest choice.
I was going to say, raise your hand if you've ever been through wanting to burn it down.
Yes.
Yeah. Both hands.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the reality is, and leaving something may be the right choice for you. We have another episode about that. Quitting something may be the right choice. But the reality is you should not make those choices in the midst of the chaos. Those are choices to be made when you're in your logical brain, when your amygdala is not running the show and you are using logic to make those choices. And in the moment of crisis or chaos or someone leaving your business, it really does feel like the easy button. Like, nope, let's just go get a regular job. I am done with this. Nope, we're not going to do that anymore. Don't make those decisions in the midst of chaos.
Don't do it, friend. Yeah, but it's so tempting. And especially if you're like in it and you have nothing left in the tank and you're exhausted and tired, that's when you just want to get the little blowtorch out. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. You'll thank us later, but don't do it. I love this next one. So this was inspired actually when I went through chaos by our dear friend, Anna Kruger, who was supporting a family member of hers through a really difficult health time. And she was in a different business. She has all these superpowers. And she started to ask herself the question of like, how do I make money while being creative with the time and location that I have? And so she decided to take a step back and say, I need to take care of this family member full time. I also need to make a living. How can I take my superpowers and turn them into something I can monetize? And she created this incredible, the sales coaching business. And like, if you go to dinner with her, it's hilarious. It's like sitting with some crazy rock star. It's like sitting with Aerosmith of the real estate industry, because it's like watching Steven Tyler. I have been at dinner with her and she literally can't eat her food because so many people walk up to her to tell her how thankful they are for her. It's amazing. It started out of a necessity for her having to get creative on how to monetize her superpowers and to create a business of coaching around it that has freed her up geographically. It's the coolest thing ever. But she had to reinvent the way she was. But she didn't go and have to learn a whole new skill set. She said, what am I really good at and how can I monetize that so that I can also do what I need to do over here? She's my superhero in that category because she did it beautifully. Really, really beautifully.
Yeah, I love that. There's always a solution if you're willing to think about it hard enough and long enough to find the solution.
Yep.
Okay, number 8, give yourself grace. You are going to screw this up. Like you are doing something that you have never done before, that maybe somebody else has never done before. And you are going to screw up. You're going to tick people off. And most people will not really understand what you're going through. I know in that period of time, I was across the world. I was supposed to be on sabbatical. Like if you haven't heard the stories, we were supposed to leave our business for 3 months to be on sabbatical, not working. We were going to Taiwan. We were going to learn Mandarin. It was going to be this awesome experience. And while there, COVID exploded. They closed their borders. We got kicked out of our apartment because we were American. They thought we had COVID. But then I had a young leader in the States trying to run things, and you can't really be on sabbatical when you know the whole world is exploding. You don't know that there's a problem. You just let it ride. Yeah. But when you know there's a big problem, so that's a 12-hour difference. So I was working. I would put my kids to bed in the hotel room that we ended up living in. And then I would go out in the lobby. I would start our team meeting at what was 9 p.m. in Taiwan. I would work until 2 or 3. Then we would get up with our kids at 6 or 7. And then we had our Mandarin lessons already set up, which we stopped doing immediately because you can't learn Mandarin on 3 hours of sleep. And so we would nap for the hour or 2 hours that we had those lessons. And we just never got a full night's sleep because we were basically working all night. Yeah. And I was not a great leader. I made choices I wouldn't make now. I did my best, which at the time was not good enough, but it was my best. And I hurt people's feelings, and I didn't let people know that I was operating on 3 hours of sleep. And so, of course, I forgot important things, or, like whatever that thing was. I screwed up a lot, and I can look back now and still beat myself up about it if I let myself do that. But the reality is I did the best that I could, and I meant no ill will towards anyone, and you're going to screw up. And so you've got to give yourself grace, and you can't keep punishing yourself over and over again for mistakes that you make in the middle of crisis. So learn from it, but give yourself grace.
You do the best you can do with the information you have and the skills that you have. And sometimes that's just the best you can do. And it's okay. And we learn and we grow. The amount of inappropriate journal entries I have from that 5-year period, and everyone's like, you're so positive. I was like, I don't know. If you read through my journal, you'd be like, Seychelle ain't right. This is...
But that's a good tool.
Yeah, it was a great tool.
You had an avenue for it.
I did. I had an avenue. And you know what? I don't know. I have a very dry sense of humor when it comes to things sometimes. And so I have some girlfriends now with parents with either Parkinson's or dementia, both of which we went through with my dad. And they were like, I didn't know what you were going through, but I know now, and it's we'll have little chat rings going where they are like, I can say this to you because you've been there. If I said this out loud in the real world, it would not be the same. So yeah, have a group of people. For us, that's our circles. That's her best life group. That's our empire circle. Have a group that can be your vault, that can lift you up and can help carry you and support you through this process, because you're not going to get through it alone. So make sure you give yourself some grace and also put some people around you that can say, it's okay. We're going to help carry you there. The next one, which I love, is track what you want to see happen. And so when the market is chaos, right, there's certain metrics that you track. When it's personal chaos, there can be certain metrics you can track that can help you feel more in control. And so when my dad's health is crazy, it was the first thing I would track is the care for him that we were setting up and the way in which we were lining up his family to support him. The second thing I would track would be, how am I going to pay for this? And then the third thing I was tracking is, how am I mentally doing? Physically, how is Seychelle? How are we today? How is my family? How's Quinn? How's Nick? How's my mom? And I would track mentally where we were at. And some days it was a 0 and there were days it was a 10. But I tracked those 3 things, or the things that I was watching on a regular basis, to make sure that I knew we would be okay. When a market's chaotic, right, you might track your market data, right? You might track your business cash flow coming in and your personal expenses going out, right? You might track how your people are doing, right? So depending on what chaos you're going through, pick whatever are some things you can control that give you a sense of authority in the matter, so that you feel like you can move something forward and feel like you're seeing progress in that way.
Yeah, I've seen that too. So we went through a period where all our hard money loans defaulted. And
perfect.
Yeah, super awesome. And so that was money that we counted on for our personal budget. And so I started tracking every dollar coming in so I could understand it, because I knew, or at least I thought, we were going to be fine. But if we didn't get that money every month and I wasn't tracking the other income that was coming in and balancing it with the budget, to Seychelle's point earlier, I wouldn't sleep at night, because I would just be like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not thinking about something? Or what if there's a surprise this month? And, we've got our nest egg, but I don't want to touch that because this is a cash flow problem and we've got enough cash flow. I just need to make sure we have enough cash flow. for me, I wasn't tracking every penny that was coming in when I knew we had enough. But when a big chunk of it disappeared, I went back to, okay, I need to see the money coming in again, just so that I know that we have what we need to pay our bills. And that could be you having a regular job. You need to track that money,
or get a side hustle for a quick minute to help supplement that. Like, I know for us, it's watching our sales business, like on the net income to the team, like knowing when we cross the threshold from being in the red each month to the black. Like, and in a market shift, it's like I was on before we started recording today, like looking at the numbers, and there were a few contracts that hadn't hit the sheets yet. So I'm manually like adding the numbers up in my brain to be like, in the next 3 months, are these going to hit red or black yet? When do I know we're in the black for each of those? And it can be a simple gamification of, just to Tiffany's point, like the balancing, the quick checking, just knowing where you're at sometimes is so valuable because you know then where to go. You can make the decisions of what things you need to move around, change, cut, grow, etc., to help you get where you need to go next.
Okay. And number 10, our last tip, therapy is awesome.
It really is.
To me, it goes to the asking for help as well. Like a uninvolved voice who can help you get clear, ask you good questions, and give you some of those tools that we were talking about your specific situation is invaluable. Like it pays dividends. And I wasn't raised in an environment where therapy was positive.
No, it was actually very much a stigma.
Yeah.
What I grew up with.
Do not buy into that stigma. Therapy is awesome.
My favorite question when I first started therapy was, am I crazy or is this situation crazy? Literally, it was my first question for my first therapist. I was like, am I crazy or is this crazy? She's like, we'll find out.
Stay tuned, Seychelle.
Y'all can decide. You can tell us.
In 4 to 6 sessions, we will know for certain.
Yeah. I was like, that's why I'm here. That's what I need to know. I just need to know if I need to be institutionalized because I'm crazy or if this is crazy and we got to just figure out how to deal with the situation. So, that was my jumping off point. So I can't wait to hear what yours are. If you're out there listening, we'd love to hear it.
That's awesome.
Well, you guys, this is your 10 tips for surviving and thriving in chaos. If you can get some of these under your belt, you're not going to get them all at once. Start with number 1, which is what we gave you, which is identify your actual problem and then get into reality of it. Then you can start working on your skill set and all the other pieces. And if you don't have that nest egg built up, right behind that, get that nest egg growing, because those top 3 things are going to make everything else easier. We are here for you. We empathize with you if you're going through a tough time right now. And if you have a friend going through it or a family member too, just know that we're here to support you.
Well, and the tough times make you who you are. Yeah. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. You can say that that's not true about you, but I'm a better person sitting here today for the horrible 5 years that I lived through in all the different ways that I kept thinking, oh, that one's solved. And then I just get hit up the head with the next one.
That's why you and I both have really high rapid problem solving though.
Maybe that's how we survived it.
No, it is. It truly is. I think that's a skill set with a muscle you and I both built on rapid problem solving because stuff kept coming so quickly. We didn't have time to process it and really pontificate it. It was, this needs to be solved now.
Yeah.
I think that's why we both are really rapid problem solvers.
So we don't wish hard times on any of you, but just know that who you become on the other side, I'm never signing up to go back through it ever again. However, I am grateful for who I am now on this side of what I experienced. And so that's what we want for all of you is it is worth the journey. Every journey that's put before us is your journey. And so who you're becoming is more important than just your immediate situation. So remember that. And I hope that you guys all go out this week and live your big life and build your big business at the same time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.